Welcome to the harbor, everybody. I am Scott Keith, here with the Kino cowboy himself, the king of all Kino. We're talking about 1981's Possession, directed by Andrzej Żuławski. I don't know how to say that. It's one of those Eastern Europe things where there's a Z in the middle of it, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I've read one of the Witcher books and played 3 video games, and I still don't know how to pronounce that author's name. Like, it's still like Andrzej Żuławski. So it's
Kick Witowski. Yeah, I don't know. I should have tried finding
Possession by Charles Bukowski.
Yeah.
And anyway, this is a wacky, silly, goofy, almost slapstick horror movie that's also incredibly unsettling. Almost not even for the horror elements. The real horror is the domestic terror and the potential bodies.
And there might be some themes from our last cast running into this one with doppelgangers and shit. You know, if you watched our Mulholland Drive cast, shout out to you.
There's definitely doppelgangers.
Before we say anything, I do want to say, dude, the creature effects are really good in this movie, really effective. And it's 1981, so a long time ago. But just the right lighting and the execution of the creature shit, it looks fucked up. I was impressed as hell.
No, it's very good. It's got your Cronenbergs, your eldritch tentacle monsters, what have you, body horror. I almost think I wish in the opening credits they hadn't put the creature designer or whatever in his name, because I didn't know there was a creature in this movie until
I didn't actually see that in the credits.
I did see, I saw that and I was like, crap.
And that's the thing. Normally, a good amount of these episodes we do have been screened by me. It's usually in film I've seen in the past, but some of them are just whims, things I've seen discussed online. I'm like, this could possibly be good. And so yeah, this is both our first times. And for a minute there, for about 30-40 minutes, I was like, wait a minute, I thought this was a horror film. Hopefully this isn't just like, I was fine with what it was,
from
but,
a marriage, but louder.
I saved it for October for Halloween spooky vibes. I was like, wait a minute, is this gonna escalate into some horror? Yes, it does.
Hard, hard and fast, all at once. This movie, I know I've heard this. The main reference I've seen from this is specifically the close-up of the actress who plays Isabelle. No, who plays Anna. Sorry, the actress's name is Isabelle. When the possession, which is never really explained, comes over her at one moment when she's. I mean, if you grew up in a broken home, this movie's gonna have some familiarity for you. I'm just gonna say that right now. It's rough to watch, and like my parents are still together, and it gave me divorce flashbacks. I don't even know how to explain that. But it's what's Sam Neill, who I want to start right there.
Yeah.
Sam Neill is a Kiwi.
Yeah.
I had no idea. That threw me off.
Yeah, I was like,
why is Dr. Grant or whatever speaking with an accent? What's happened? What?
I don't know. I just called for it in the film. Who knows?
I guess. No, well, he's some, it's not explained, but he's doing some sort of espionage activity for the Western powers under a divided Berlin. And the divided Berlin is obviously a mirror to the divided marriage that they're having there. Only instead of Soviets, it's Cronenberg monsters. I don't know. Not that Cronenberg had anything to do with this, but body horror monsters.
And a majority of the framing of shots in this film also show the literal divide between these two characters. And especially a lot of the cinematography is ahead of its time, like just trend wise. Films back then, a little more static, usually less moving around. This has a lot of wide angles, open framing,
handheld shots,
a lot of walls and ceilings, making the character look small, maybe isolated.
And it's also, the environments all seem so angular, like they're jutting out and boxing the characters in, but almost stabbing at them in a way. And
Yeah.
there's some points. There's one point where Mark, the main character, the husband, gets disoriented in an apartment because he's looking for he hires private investigators, and it's just in an apartment building where their office is, and he gets turned around in the apartment. And I think I get a sense with the cinematography and the blocking and all the shots of what the apartments look like, but there's still almost a disorienting aspect to it, especially because some of these apartments are very sparsely decorated.
Yeah.
Which is probably partially budget and partially intentional. Although, I don't know, not everybody is a meemaw and has to hang a bunch of crap on the walls. You can be German and just get the essentials.
Yeah, speaking of walls, I'm in my new place, but to anyone who follows my sparse updates on this show, but yeah, nothing really in here. It almost looks like a shot from the film in a way.
It does. Only not as interesting, and nobody cares.
Yeah, millennial gray. Because of the millennial gray, I will be hanging shit up. But anyway.
Is millennial gray, is that a phrase? I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, it is. It's an unfortunate trend in architecture and design and interior design.
Oh, it is. Everything being washed out. Well, I have some 90s beige, so I'm really throwing it back, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, all of this I was saying, I kind of skipped over it. The main thing I know is, in every frame of painting, uses it in one of his videos on editing, is the close-up of Anna and her changing, her face contorting and then smiling after Mark hits her as she becomes possessed in that moment. And this movie, in its directorial decisions, has very over-the-top performances. And that's what makes it unsettling. There are some scenes that it goes on a bit long, and I'm like, all right, this is starting to get hammy. But I was exhausted by the end of the movie, which I do think was the intent. So in that, it was successful. I feel like there had to be, especially for Anna, an emotional toll of portraying this, or at the very least, a toll on your vocal cords. They all had to
big time.
They all got polyps after this that they had to get lasered off, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's I'm so used to horror these days coming like with a kind of a slow burn with shit. This comes at you very quickly with extremely uncomfortable vibes and stressful moments. And I was like, shit, yeah. I mean, this is how domestic disputes can happen out of nowhere very quickly, sometimes very violently all at once. And I don't know. So that it kind of replicates that in a way.
Right. And both of them are cheating on each other. And Mark has been away on whatever espionage mission with whatever clandestine multinational governmental organization he works for.
Yeah.
And Anna's been just a homemaker, bored housewife, gonna cheat with an older but more sexually satisfying man.
Dude, that guy's crazy.
That guy's crazy. That guy, they really made that character up. Like, he's really, I don't know if they had the summer of love in Germany, but like that guy probably flew over just to like fuck everyone and invent AIDS with his own penis and like go back to Germany. He's constantly has I don't know what a Nehru jacket is, but I feel like it's a Nehru jacket. Don't quote me on that. But he like constantly has his chest open. He's even sensual with Mark when they first meet.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't want to hate you. And it's like, your tricks won't work on me, you incubus. Like, it's, I don't know. It's a whole thing. He's almost a force unto himself. But no, they immediately get into all these disputes, and it's immediately fast cut, constant camera movement. There's even a point where he's getting debriefed by his military superiors or whomever they are. It's never really explained explicitly. And they want him like, well, you want to go on some more missions? And he's like, I'm out, and even in that, which is just a table in the corner of an empty room that you're like, what is this building even used for outside of being a movie set? Which the cameras were just whipping around him, doing like 360s.
That's the thing, is that those 360 tracking shots are that it's ahead of its time. It uses it a lot, but that was such a trend in like the late 2000s.
Yeah.
And to see it here in 1981 used so much and so fluidly. There's no track. They're not using tracks. There's one point where you can see the ground while they're going around. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Is this an early Steadicam thing? What is this? Or is it just clever editing? I don't know.
I don't know. When was a Steadicam invented? That was Rocky.
I should know this.
Was Steadicam invented? 75, yeah, because that was Rocky. Right?
Okay. But yeah, it's just how smooth all the movement is for such an early film with an old, late 70s film camera. It's impressive, really.
Right. I've a feel. My gut tells me with this movie that Andrzej, the director, had to be a perfectionist, and he had to get take after take to get the performances he wanted. He probably didn't go full abusive like Stanley Kubrick in The Shining to Shelley Duvall, who has, if you've checked up on her recently, he broke that woman's brain. But and then Dr. Phil exploited her because he's a piece of shit. But
yeah,
I saw another video of like some YouTubes catching up with her. I'm like, she just seems like a nice old lady, man.
Yeah,
she's weird, but she's an actress. She's what are you gonna do? I bet Jack Nicholson's weird if you just hung out with him.
Yeah, I fucking bet so.
He played the Joker. He's all curmudgeonly. He can't remember lines now. I think that's part of the problem. He's too old. Also, he's like, I don't want to spend 16 hours on a film set. I have a gajillion dollars. I don't care. I'll just let those cuckoo's nest dollars fly in. Yeah, so we're immediately thrust into this domestic dispute, and it's obviously this has been bubbling for a long time. And there's a child, and the child acting is, it's not some Haley Joel Osment, it's not AI, but I almost feel the child is distant, and maybe that's just how the child is acting, but you get the sense that this kid, Bob, which is an interesting name for a child, not Bobby, not Rob, not Robert, Bob. I was thinking that as an old man name. Is almost dissociating with this. He doesn't know how to deal with it. And how old do you think he is? What, 7? Something like that?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So he doesn't know what's going on. And
yeah.
he's not in the movie. I do wonder at point, like, are nobody's neighbors calling on, like, they have laws in Germany that you can't mow your lawn on Sundays to bother people. So I'm like, this is
all metaphorical. To me it's not really happening. So
you don't think they're really yelling at each other like that?
Well, I am sure. I mean, I think couples yelling at each other was just a little bit less dealt with back then.
I actually think that's true. That's absolutely true.
So
I actually know for a fact Arnold Schwarzenegger talked about, like, when Germans and Austrians like returned from the war, they all just got drunk and hit their wives. That's what you did when you lost World War II. Like, I'm not, but I'm saying it was, I think you're right. It was more common. There's one point where he's tearing. First of all, they're yelling in a cafe, and one of the things that's unsettling about that is I do think you're right. There could be an interpretation where this is the actual accurate depiction of their emotions, but maybe if a third party were to view, say, their argument in the cafe, it would be a more controlled conversation.
No, it definitely is. In my mind, this whole film is like the opposite of a male fantasy. To me, it's like a toxic, abusive husband's view on his relationship falling apart, and his mind of how dramatic it is to him in a way.
Yeah. No, because you can't really blame Anna for cheating. He leaves, the guy's drunk, he goes on a 3-day bender, or is it 2 weeks? I don't even remember. He loses track of time.
It's several weeks. It's like 3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks, and he wakes up in a hotel room, and it's like, how long has it been?
It reminds me of a lot of men who cannot accept that there might be some problems with their significant other, but a lot of the problems come from them, and they just refuse to identify that or work on that. And are in denial. That's just what it reminds me of. A lot of toxic men like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially of this time, if this guy, you know, I guess Sam Neill, how old is he? Because what is he, about 30 in this movie? I
He
feel
looks
like
cool.
he looks old.
No, cool. I don't
He
know,
looks
just like cooler than he is in other movies I've seen.
Yeah, no, he's like 26 even. Dang.
Wow.
He's born in 54. So
Okay.
you're a boomer. Like, I don't know. Some of them went to therapy, but not all.
No, not enough.
And this guy's doing like espionage work. So who knows what kind of psychology somebody who has that is.
Yeah.
Normally you have to be kind of stable, like fucked up but stable. It's weird. It's like if you ever hear like Jocko Willink or any of those Navy SEALs talk, it's like weird because they seem so controlled. I'm like, okay, I know you've killed like 50 people minimum, so I don't know what's going on.
Cotton Hill. Yeah.
To like compartmentalize whatever's going on in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cotton Hill. I killed 50 men.
Now, I love that cafe scene. That shot, at first, it's a flat shot of him on the left, her on the right, and they're literally divided by the corner of the booth, which is a split on both sides, going either way. And then the camera doesn't do like a 360 tracking. It just kind of tilts left a bit, almost keeping it static while they kind of change places, like the way they're
power dynamic shifts.
And now he's at the forefront and she's behind him, slightly out of focus. And it's such a simple way to display information, but it's just a great shot. And obviously I'm going to insert it when you're watching this video. But yeah, I was just like, yeah, this is cool. Like, it doesn't have to be subtle. And honestly, I love the language of film, and I like that a film early from 1981, I mean, to use such a vast array of tools in its repertoire for angles and placement of characters and such. I don't know.
No, it does it very well. It doesn't have to be subtle. And then after that, when the entire cafe seems to be ignoring him, he goes absolutely apeshit and starts flipping tables, throwing chairs. The chefs have to come out with their big stereotypical chef hats, which is weird. You're in a cafe. It's like, aren't you guys making like bagels? Like, why do you all have chef hat anyway?
Yeah.
But it's like, there's not beef Wellington on the menu in this place, is there? I don't know.
I've always wanted to try beef Wellington, just to say I have.
Now, we've been saying that for like a year that we need.
I know. We just got to go do it.
We just got to do it. You got to. You're the only one who could pull that off, even possibly. I can't.
Oh yeah, I guess I could try. But
we can just go get it.
I don't know where around here would serve it. Anyway,
who's gonna pay for it?
We might update the viewers on our beef Wellington quest.
Yeah, that's gonna be the running gag for 2024. Is beef Wellington. So subscribe if you want to see that.
Yeah, so there's obvious psychological shit going on, and rather quickly you realize not everything's what it seems, at least psychologically, because once he drops the kid off at school, the school teacher looks exactly like his wife. She's some sort of weird doppelganger of her. It's kind of strange, and he even tries to like snatch the wig off her head, but it's real. And obviously to me it's his psychological delusion, his mind breaking down from this kind of breakup between him and his wife.
He's like, this is what I remember my wife as, this sweet, kind maternal figure, young, beautiful. They put really big, I guess, green contact lenses or whatever they do. She has like really big green eyes to differentiate herself from Anna, the normal actress who plays the mom. Who, by the way, is so busy running off and banging her hippie boyfriend that she leaves Bob alone, the child, for stretches at a time.
Yeah.
And also she's possibly possessed by a demon.
Yeah.
Which honestly, there was, before the body horror showed up, I'm like, so is possession, how literal is it? Or is it just a metaphor? And then you're like, And then you're like, oh, it's quite literal. There's definitely
Yeah, I was the same way.
is
And
it a
yeah,
metaphor for
because
alcoholism? I actually thought he was getting possessed when I first saw he was having the delirium tremors or whatever.
well,
Again,
he is
aiming it up.
rocking and moving and shaking the entire movie. And so the argument is there that he's the one who's possessed, but it's not like a paranormal possession. You know, it's this whole
I
movie to me is his delirium. It's his mental breakdown.
No, it absolutely is. And I think this came after the director's divorce or breakup. And so maybe there's some
Ooh, it's
contrition,
like
some
Temple of Doom.
yeah, it's like his Temple of Doom, I guess. Yeah, you know what this movie needed? Short Round. That would have been cool. Or if their son was just inexplicably played by Kei Kwan,
No,
adopted or something.
after he beats his wife, he says, "You betrayed Shiva."
Oh God.
I'm just kidding.
But anyway, uh
This movie just said this is proof of some people should have never been parents.
oh,
You
absolutely.
don't
Because she
fuck
leaves,
off and leave your kid alone. I know you feel trapped, but you left your kid alone for extended periods of time.
and your
So,
kid's just sitting there dissociating, covered in jam because he got into the jam because the
yeah,
kid likes jam. You see him eat jam all through this movie.
fucked
Um,
up.
Eating jam and bread and crackers. It looks like blood. Looks like he's covered in blood.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude.
because everyone, yeah, because like you said, you're wondering before the actual horror shit happens, like, wait a minute, is this possession shit just like a, like a psychological term, like, and then because the way everyone acts in this movie is bizarre as hell.
It is.
It's
There's even at one
stylized,
point
obviously, in that
it
way,
is
but
highly stylized, but there's even one point later when what's his name? The Heinrich. Uh
Heinrich, yeah,
boy Heinrich. But he shows up presumably drunk or something at Mark's place or high or something, he's a stoner. He was saying he had Indian Kush or something at one point. He's all about like fucking for spirituality. He's one of those. He's the kind of guy who's like that yoga instructor who would just like grope his students and stuff. He's one of those guys, one of those new agey creeps. The like I self-identify as a feminist sort of guy. You know what I mean? He's one
yeah.
of those. Um, I think it's completely possible that they both could have been spiritually possessed. I would even take the argument that there's nothing supernatural in this movie and it's all in everybody's heads and everything's just a hallucination or some sort of
Yes,
distortion of events.
definitely.
I think both of those are equally plausible. And here's the thing, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly. Some people get too caught up on what's what and what's definitive. And I'm like, dude, it's a piece of art. It's a film, dude.
My example, as always, is the end of Inception with the top. Is Cobb in the dream world or not? The point of that ending is that he doesn't care anymore. He goes toward his happiness and toward his
Yeah,
children. People pick it
exactly.
apart, but I'm like, I don't want to know. I don't care. That's not the point of the movie.
I like when he goes to confront the lover. What's his name? Heinrich.
Heinrich.
Yeah, and they're like fighting for a moment, and the way Heinrich like bends back while trying to fight him off is so funny. It's so exaggerated.
It's like he spent years in Tibet training with Shaolin monks. Like even the way he breaks him off, he doesn't push him off. He like karate chops his chest, and then Sam Neill, Mark backs up and then just gets his ass kicked. And it's really it's one of the most emasculating things I've ever seen in a film because he straight up asks Anna, like, was it sexual? Was he better than me? And she's like, yeah. And then he's talking to Heinrich about like him being better than him. And then he tries to fight Heinrich, who's like 20 years older than him. And then Heinrich absolutely kicks the shit out of him,
Yeah.
like kung fu's him. And if Mark wasn't such a piece of crap to begin with, you'd feel terrible for the guy.
Yeah, but it's all, to me, it's from his point of view, it's his bullshit fantasy. He's emasculated. And it escalates obviously at the end when he kills the guy. And it's just like,
Yeah, no, completely unhinged at the end.
but because it really, the reason I say it's from his perspective, because he just doesn't see all the shit with his wife and what she's going to as a woman with and her lack of power in a lot of situations. Like, yeah, maybe she's been fooling around, but why has she been fooling around? We don't really get to know the details of that. We see her just self-harm, which would, in a normal drama, it would just be self-harm. In this movie, she's cutting herself with an electric fucking knife. And she, yeah, and then like she allows that bum to take the banana from her groceries. She has no power, you know.
Right. No, and she's completely checked out and she's given
Yeah.
out. And then of course Mark cuts his wrist after with the carving knife.
More toxic fucking
Yeah, just to be like, I'll do
behavior.
it too. Now we're both hurt. Now you can't complain. Or
Yeah.
no solidarity in that we're both hurt. It's nuts. I was thinking throughout the movie it was interesting to so film is still a pretty male dominated medium. Certainly with directors ratio women to men. But I did think it was interesting. I'm like, they're really focusing on the man's point of view through this movie. And there are some scenes that are, for example, in the subway, which is just ape shit, that are Anna's point of view or that are following just her.
Yeah.
But I do think at the point, I do think the reason they did that is not because I think part of it might be because it's a male director and this is obviously based on his own experiences. I hope he didn't go this crazy and hit his wife and stuff. But you know, he was married to an actress, so I don't know what that's like.
I'm actually surprised this is a male director because to me this is showcasing the just most extreme example of the toxic male boyfriend or husband. So I am surprised by that. Especially like in the subway when she just completely loses it
and miscarries, but she's bleeding out of her shoulders.
Yeah, well, it also seems to come out of her vagina. I thought
it does, but it's also coming out of her upper body.
I know it's
like she's
interesting.
miscarrying like a demon baby or something, or that's what she perceives.
I will say, when I saw that scene and that started happening, I was eating this creamy chicken noodle soup. And I had to put it away. I looked at it and I was like, nah, I'm good.
No, and the actress in that scene, and I'm thinking like, well, I feel like they only had one take because she had to like crack a bunch of eggs and milk and groceries and get it everywhere.
Yeah,
And they had to clean that up between takes. So maybe halfway through filming, after she had gotten used to her portraying histrionics, and she won awards for this movie for her performance, which is earned, I think. You know, I wouldn't call it subtle. Not at parts, but even that part I mentioned where her face just turns in that close up and she goes from damaged to contorted to smiling, like every subtle facial expression in that, and even the pacing of how it builds to just that creepy possessed smile. I mean, that's subtle acting. It is and it isn't.
her having that freak out in the subway is supposed to be like a creepy moment, but to me, I see it for what it is. It's really sad. To me, it's a woman feeling trapped in her domestic situation and she can't truly escape, and she's having a mental freak out over the situation she's in. And,
right. It went on a little too long for me.
I like it.
Some of the breakdown scenes and stuff, it went on a little too long and it was just hammy. And I was almost like, are my neighbors gonna like knock on the door and tell me to stop screaming? Like, what's gonna happen if I'm watching this movie?
No, to me, it pushes you to the limit, and that's why I like it.
It does. It's uncomfy. This is an uncomfy movie.
Also, one of the big pluses about this movie is that this is a film about someone possessed, and we get to see them try to go about their daily life, but they can't. And you know, because normally in possession movies, the possessed is stuck inside of a house and they're being tormented by this spirit or whatever. And then there's usually a priest or a religious focus of characters. And, you know, The Exorcist broke ground in 1973 because before this, people didn't know really what an exorcism was. That was heavily popularized in popular culture by The Exorcist. And so like a lot of possession movies feel like they have to go down that route of focusing on the actual exorcism and stuff. It was just nice for this to be a completely off the wall different thing from this kind of time period.
Right.
And
I mean, there's good movies like about possession, like Possession and The Exorcist, and then there's bad movies about possession, like the new Exorcist movie that just came out. That I haven't seen it, but it's bad. I haven't seen it. I haven't even really read about it, but I know it's bad. I
I
just
can
know.
tell you why it's bad, even though I haven't seen it. I've read this. I know what happens in the film, and I've heard a lot of my friends online talk about it. So
Does it retcon stuff from the original or something?
no, it's just
Well, okay, this is gonna be bad, really bad. What I'm about to say. Never seen The Exorcist.
okay. Um the cool thing about The Exorcist is that it's a drama. It's portrayed as like one of the scariest movies of all time, but at the forefront is a drama, and it's about a woman just trying to save her child any way she can. A non-religious woman who the scariest part of the movie is that she has to go on blind faith with something she doesn't even believe in. And so that's the cool aspect of the film. That's why it's so strong, is the drama behind it. But everyone tried to replicate that with their possession movies. And this is just so off the wall different. And obviously, I'd argue it's not, a real possession movie. Even though there's creatures and monsters and stuff, it's all, representing domestic shit. But yeah, just watching her try to go about her day while under this duress and trying not to like contort and shit is fucked up. It's awesome though.
And that shit happens, man. Where you're just I mean, I've practically broken down crying at the stupidest shit if I'm like really going through it. And I can't even explain why. It's not even the situation that breaks me. Sometimes the banality of everything, just if my mind is empty, if I'm doing something like grocery shopping, coming home from the grocery, and your mind's empty and subconsciously you've been processing all your grief, and then it just all comes rushing
Yeah,
back all at once because you can't
sure.
anymore because your mind's not occupied, and your mind returns to those thoughts. It's like I wrote this in my notes. The meme of Marriage Story, which is a very good movie, of Adam Driver doing the "I am not like my father." It's like that scene, but for 2 hours times 100. Like that's what.
Yeah. And
And also Cronenberg monsters.
it's like, yeah, we all, a lot of us have mental illness and problems with dealing with certain things, and we keep it together. But I feel like majority of people have moments in their lives where they just completely break down and cannot hold it all in. Sometimes that happens in public or around people, and it's considered very
The faux pas.
yeah. And even though it happens to majority of people, it's in that moment everyone's kind of silently like, ew, oh no. Even I don't know. So I kind of feel like this pushes that stress of that, because
It does, and it's also I think part of the reason people date or get married is like, hey, when I do have my eventual breakdown, my like biannual every 2 year breakdown or whatever you are, or even just some people a few times in their life. And when I say breakdown, I don't mean a break from reality as extreme as this. Like it could just be like you just start crying for no reason.
sure.
It's like I need somebody to stroke my hair, but this woman, she has no support system once she gets Heinrich taken away.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like she has friends. Doesn't seem like either of them do. And there's really no sense of community. Everybody's just in these apartments, but we don't see a lot of common spaces. They're not hanging out in parks. I'm just thinking of that and the social isolation, even it seems like the design of the city brings about. Even though modern Berlin is very different. I don't know how it was in 81 or 1980. But even that's a problem. I'm just thinking of the idea of the third place, which gets thrown around in sociology, of like other than work and home. A lot of third places, like in America since the 60s, like people have been getting less and less social. And like a large portion of men over 50 don't have even like one male friend they can like reach out to and talk
Wow.
to. Like I don't even know if my dad has a lot of friends, to be honest. He still talks to people, but and I don't know. That's also part of the problem. I'm just talking relationships now. I was listening. There's a YouTube channel, Soft White Underbelly. You might have heard of. This guy interviews all sorts of people. And usually it's like homeless people or addicts or like people who are considered part of society's underclass. But at one point, he interviews a divorce lawyer who has very cynical views about marriage, but also very practical views. And one of his things he points out is the idea in modern Western society that the person you marry has to be a perfect lover, parent, roommate, homemaker, financial partner. Like they have to be your everything is absolutely ridiculous that anybody can be that. And yet we've almost like built our society to make it harder and harder to get outside of that.
Yeah.
And now we shoot farther into online communities. Now I'm kind of getting off topic, but it just brings all of that to mind. I don't know of how isolated people are these days.
Dude, I see TikTok teenagers using a filter on TikTok that like you take the moon and what cycle it was on when you were born, and then you do that with your significant other. And if the moon size doesn't line up perfectly, they think that they're not destined to be together. I'm like, dude, good luck with that.
Yeah, well, those people shouldn't breed, so I'm
I
glad.
know.
Like they shouldn't fuck
It's
anybody.
so funny to me.
Um,
That's how old I feel sometimes. I get on this app and I'm in the wrong area of TikTok. I'm like, how did I get here?
he's like, oh no, this should be movie trivia. Why am I looking at teenagers?
This should be videos of people throwing glass bottles downstairs.
No, I'm famously the curmudgeon of the harbor, so
Yeah.
I don't have TikTok, but I do think a lot of how many teenagers just like have friends on Discord or gaming friends or stuff. Maybe I read too much Reddit when I should be working. I don't know. I had online friends as a kid though.
Yeah,
Um
I did on Xbox Live and
and
also
we never see Bob play with kids or
some
interact with anybody outside of school.
yeah.
His home life, I think he's just playing with his toys and holding his breath underwater in the bathtub,
Yeah.
which is a normal thing to do as a kid, but almost dark how he does it. It also ends up real
I
dark.
tuned a lot of domestic shit out as a kid. And I don't think it bubbled up until much later. Now, when my parents did get divorced, I was already in like 10th, 11th grade. So it's a little bit different for me, but I do have some memories of hearing arguments and yelling and shit in the other room and while I'm trying to sleep and shit. So it does these kinds sometimes these movies they do affect me in a way, but
Yeah, no, it absolutely. I mean, I remember arguments my parents had, and my parents didn't break up or anything. Dude, my
yeah,
parents worked together for years and years in the
I
same
couldn't do it.
newsroom, and like I fuck that.
That's
No,
that's dangerous for a relationship.
that's what they well, it worked out. That's where they met. But fuck that. I don't want to work in a newsroom, period. But I'm looking for jobs.
This
Um,
movie really it takes a turn around the halfway point where first of
48
all,
minutes.
yeah, but the first of all, she is going off to this possibly abandoned flat just so she can have her own little safe space, her own little slice of control, and even that's interrupted because Mark sends a an investigator to trail her and follow her, and he comes into the apartment, and now she no longer has that control. She doesn't want him there, I don't know, and she's being followed by him and investigated, and it's just like it adds to that pile-on of shit that's obviously leading to a severe breakdown. But obviously in this film, it leads to actual, like, she kills him, and that's when the film takes the turn, and you see that fucking thing in the bed and stuff, and you're like, oh shit, now we're here, something has truly manifested, this grief, this trauma, that's what
And
that is.
maybe this is, the more you say, like, this entire thing could be surreal and in their heads, which I think is a valid interpretation. Maybe later in the movie, when that creature is having sex with her, which is the fact that exists in this movie is awesome.
Yeah.
This movie got cut down by about 30. It went from 2 hours to 90 minutes in the US, by the way.
Wow.
I don't know what version you watch. I watched the uncut version.
I watched the regular 2-hour version.
Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah, no way.
I could see how you could cut. There are certain scenes I'm like, I could see how you could cut this out and it wouldn't, like, affect the plot necessarily. 30 minutes seems like a lot, though.
Yeah.
I could see, like, what if she was just, instead of a creature banging her, what if she was just fucking a dead body because she was so lonely, of some guy she killed?
Yeah.
What if that's what Mark walked in on?
That'd be cool.
That'd be cool. Yeah. There's so many weird quotes in this movie that
there's definitely, there's a slant to this whole thing that's going on, because when the Heinrich shows up to his apartment, he spouts almost like near nonsense to the
I
guy.
think he's drunk or high.
I know, but it's just like the physicality of the acting is more insane than ever. The movement of the guy, and it purposely drives the viewer up the wall and it's just like,
no, absolutely. It is. It's almost annoying at a point.
Yeah.
Hyper real it is, like, over the top it is. There's a point he said, Heinrich says, there's nothing to fear except God, whatever that means to you. And Mark said, for me, God is a disease. And Heinrich is like, that's why through disease we can reach God. Now, I don't know what any of that means, but
I know what it means. It means Mark would have really liked Reddit.
Yeah. See, Mark's reading Richard Dawkins a bit too much.
Yeah, Heinrich probably browses r/trees. But no, jokes aside, I do like that part. It's melodramatic, but
well, also it and that could be seen as, the contrast of of Mark. His perception of Heinrich at first is the suave, sexy, hyper masculine, virile, experienced, wise kung fu master. And whether or not he was fucked up at this point, when Heinrich enters Mark's space, now he's like, oh, now he's on his hands and knees. Now he's coming to me.
Yeah.
And that's why he perceives it like that. Whether or not that's true at all.
That makes sense to me. For sure.
Yeah,
that's
more sense to me.
Yeah, and not to mention, we do get that part where Mark does start sleeping with the teacher, and I don't know what importance that is to the overall.
It's just him displacing his grief over his failed relationship. I mean, the teacher's bathing. Wouldn't that be weird if you were a kid and your teacher came to your house and started bathing you? Wouldn't that freak you out a bit?
I think it was not as big of a deal back then.
I don't think it was.
Things have gotten out of hand with.
Oh no! When I was in Spain, if a 6-year-old would hug me and I was allowed to hug them back, which I can't do in America. But in Spain, they have the very logical. It's like 6-year-olds want to give hugs. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're a creep.
It's gotten crazy, and I do think about that. Like, even as a kid, as a toddler, I would take baths at like my aunt's house or my cousin's house. Just like, I don't know. And a teacher's
You never shower with your dad?
Yeah, he taught me how to use the shower
Yeah.
and what to
Oh,
do and make sure to get your ass, you know.
my dad didn't teach me that. I just
Yeah, he showed me the ropes and he
float
also
on a
showed me
rope.
how to shower. Uh,
Ah.
but yeah, no, I to me, teacher's such a positive, nurturing, motherly figure. I don't see, he just needs a little help. That's so 20th century though to me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
It is almost like, does this man know how to do anything himself?
And that's the thing though, is like the importance though of him taking the teacher to bed is that like he does almost get this nice quiet moment for once in the fucking movie before he's interrupted by his kid having a nightmare and it just completely crashes everything.
He's like, oh, I hate this kid. I have to look outside myself again.
Yeah. Uh, um
I also wonder. So I talked about the screams being ignored, but then we get later in the movie with that abandoned flat or whatever it is, which is
yeah,
huge, by the way. Um,
old school
is she
architecture, crazy
recording this
shit.
or is she just squatting? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, she's squatting, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
I'm pretty sure. But and she fires a gun. I mean, she's shooting, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and at a point, I'm like, so nobody noticed this. Or when the PI died and the other PI comes, he didn't report it to the police first.
And he gets shot the fuck up, yeah.
And nobody calls the police,
Yeah.
after hearing all of this. But I think later, when we'll get to the scene, um, Mark kills somebody, and it's the government agents talk to him again, and they basically don't imply, they outright say basically that they covered it up or that they dealt with it, whether that's covering it up or paying off the police or framing it to look like an accident, which was attempted but very hastily done. Um,
Yeah.
because at one point, after we see all of these disgusting, eldritch, oozing, pulsating, cancerous growths um in her room, Heinrich comes in and he's just like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
And then he gets stabbed almost in the heart by Anna stabs him and he's bleeding profusely. He hangs out at a bar, and at first I'm like, why does he call Mark? And I guess it's because he's trying to protect Anna, because he doesn't want to call the cops, because like he does love her and he thinks she needs help or psychological help, and he calls Mark in a panic as what to do. And then Mark and Sam Neill's so good at just at this point becomes completely unhinged. And I think this is really the turning point for Mark. I mean, there were
Yeah.
multiple before,
Well,
but
yeah, but it's like also, yeah, she's trying the second half is of the film, she's more unhinged too. Like she's just blabbering incoherent nonsense like before this at the house and like the way he comes home and she's just tearing apart shit. Obviously she's possessed just doing shit, but she says she's trying to gather shit to do laundry and she just and the way she's acting, any rational person would take this woman to like a mental hospital or something. But
right, no, it's like somebody in the midst of an extreme manic episode.
yeah, and Mark's like, "Hey, let's see if we can sit down together and have a quiet moment together." And she's just like off the wall. I'm like, dude. And then yeah, the few times we get her true POV, she does go to that church and she stares at Jesus, not really sure what to do or say, and she just feels so lost and trapped. And that's the part where I was thinking, like, oh no, I hope this doesn't turn into like a priest kind of exorcist thing or something. No, and that's the only religious scene we get is her kind of just having this moment of uncertainty, not really knowing what to do. And I can imagine a woman in this domestic situation feeling so trapped, suffocated. So that scene really touched me in that way.
Dude, what else do you do? I'd be praying to Jesus at that point. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know what you have to lose. I'll give 10% to not have a demon in me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like when she tries to kill Heinrich or whatever, stabs him, and then he sees the creature and he thinks it's like a gag. What kind of fucking gag is that? Dude, that'd be fucking insane.
Is this a
He like goes
joke?
blind for a moment for some reason. That's
Yeah, he
interesting.
does. I don't know. It's almost like it cast a spell on him. It would
Yeah.
be weird if you saw like a, I don't know, like a wolf with leprosy in my bedroom, and you're like, "What's the gag, Scott? What's happening?" And it's just like eating shit and like tearing shit up, and you're like, "Stop goofing around, Scott." It's like
Yeah.
has like a like human skull in its teeth.
Either I'm about to die just from actual fright because of the insanity of the situation, or you secretly became good friends with an Imagineer and had them construct an animatronic figure in your bedroom
Yeah,
just for one joke.
pretty cool. Well, I mean, and then at the point she has like dude's body on a plate in the fridge,
Yeah.
and like in barrels, there would be a smell. So the
Yeah.
neighbor, so yeah, more and more I'm leaning. It's the reason I couldn't tell if it was just a stylistic choice to make everything incredibly heightened, or if this is all just not really happening. It's in people's heads.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
again, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but
The cops do eventually get involved though.
yeah.
Um, because it's so weird because yeah, I'm really liking more and more the more I think about it, your theory that this is completely from Mark's point of view.
He's the true abusive toxic male who
Well,
doesn't
even at
think
the
he's
point where to cause a distraction in the most harebrained scheme ever that ever
yeah.
like when the cops are investigating the house and I guess he's concerned about Anna all of a sudden, he gets in a cab, gets his gun and points it at the cab driver and is like, crash into those cop cars, go back up and crash. And the cab driver's just like, sure thing, let's go. And I'm like, that's a weird response to have.
Yeah, exactly. At this point, he's completely lost it. Like, there's pretty much almost nothing left at that point in his mind. And like right before that, he sees the fridge and it freaks him out. I think that's what truly breaks him. And then he tries to destroy the evidence, and he does
blows up
that.
the apartment.
Yeah, he blows up the whole apartment.
I don't even know how he blows it up though. I don't even get. Was he turn the gas on?
He turns the
And
gas all the way on,
it
and
looks like
then
he puts like a heater. I don't even know what it is, a curling iron, like
something, yeah, next to
on
a
top
box of
of a box
matches.
of
Yeah.
matches. But I'm like, how does that blow everything? Like,
I don't know. But I do like the escalation because he goes and confronts Heinrich in like the bathroom and like gaslights him the whole time, even though he just saw the body in the fridge for himself. And then he fucking kills him in a really gnarly way. And it's just him. He cannot handle being emasculated. So it's the most extreme version of that where he has to kill the guy. And so, yeah.
poor guy, Oedipal complex, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. And then, yeah, I forgot about that part. He returns to the apartment, and his wife's friend is dead now, and he like cries.
and he was cheating with her, Margie.
Yeah.
He was banging her. Although I don't know when because I thought he was out of the country. But
I don't know. But he's got the blood all over him and he's crying, and then he allows his wife to like take care of him and clean him up like she's his mom and shit. It's really fucking weird.
And codependent.
Yeah. And
But one thing, this is a note. When they were in the cops, when they were investigating, there's a guy with an eye patch who was also on that government panel that was interviewing or debriefing them earlier or whatever they were doing. So I'm like, I think this goes deep. There's even an interpretation to be made of like government secrets with these like creatures. Like there's some sort of
it could be.
As long as we're just throwing ideas out there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's all maybe there were some weird like Soviet nuclear experiments. Some like Stranger Things shit. I don't know.
Maybe this is all very literal and there's no subtext.
Or maybe there's no subtext and this is all exactly as it
is. I'm fine with either way. Yeah, but like the reveal of I wonder because they have sex one final time,
Yes.
and then right after that he walks in on the creature on top of her, and that's one of the craziest scenes I've seen in a movie, just because
Yeah.
the creature effects are so good.
And it's ballsy, especially in a movie of that time.
Yeah,
And it's still horrifying. And
yeah,
I always appreciate it when, as desensitized as I am, because I grew up with the internet,
yeah,
um, I've seen practically snuff videos, like police cam footage and stuff. That things like that can still shock me and unsettle me.
yeah.
And the actress had to sit there and like, all right, we're gonna put this weird prosthetic thing on you, and you're just gonna have to act like you're fucking it. I hope Mark wore a condom. That's what I mean. Probably not, since it's his wife. So he's got whatever that monster's got now. I don't know. He's
Super
got,
AIDS.
yeah, demon AIDS or whatever, demon gonorrhea. Uh,
Yeah, the
th- th-
there's also that weird part where he visits Heinrich's mother and she asks if he's dead, and he confirms it, and then she like takes poison or some shit, and like talks about the soul and stuff like that. I'm not sure what to make
it's
of all that.
very she's very atheistic. She's like, basically, she says she doesn't believe in a soul, really, does she?
Yeah,
Which is weird. It's also interesting that this ladies' man basically lives with his mom. Um,
yeah,
even that's weird. I haven't read enough of Freud, nor do I care to like that.
yeah.
Mainly I'm irritated that I have a joke about the Oedipal complex, but I don't think the audiences here get it because they're stupid. It's not me. It's not that I'm not funny. It's the audiences for not getting it. I don't know. Do you have any, before we get to the ending? Do you have any other scenes you want to talk about?
No, I do. I do really like that scene where he does blow up the cop cars somehow, and he,
That's a movie thing. That's almost like 21 Jump Street when the chicken explodes and
yeah,
everything. It's just one of those movie things of that's happening. Imagine
yeah,
if cars were actually that volatile and every time you had a fender bender, it just exploded.
that'd be
I'd be
fucked
dead
up.
right now,
Yeah,
multiple times. It'd be like I'd be a burn victim. Um, I've been hit by a cop before. It was my fault. I failure to yield. That was a shitty day. I was like 16. And I was like, oh no, I got in a wreck, and I started crying. And then the guy walks out of his truck. It's a fucking cop. I'm like, well, I'm not fighting this one in court. Jesus Christ. This is my word against his. This
that's
is
crazy.
well before body footage. Yeah. I didn't scrape. I was running late for school, and I didn't scrape the ice off my window, so I didn't see it.
Uh,
Learned that the hard way.
yeah,
Anyway, at the end, he gets her away from the cops, and they're running up this building in these spiraling staircases and just get lead unloaded into them, both of them.
yeah,
And it's at that point we have the big ending reveal, which is why you referenced Mulholland Drive, because there's a tulpa, or a doppelganger, rather, of
yeah. He sees the new version of himself. He's been replaced. It's a common fear for people like him to have that insecurity of not being good enough, of not being the perfect husband.
but then also possibly, and maybe this is the silver lining, and it's actually a happy ending, is that he realizes that he was the demon all along, that he was the one possessing her and causing her to go crazy. Maybe he realizes that.
But
And
yeah.
then we get to the end with the kid and
Now, wait a second. I want to say that what cemented this as his toxic male point of view, movie wise, is that he shoots her and tries to make her die with him, which is a common thing with toxic male boyfriend abusers, and especially mama's boy abusers. Just like my fiance she has taught me a lot of psychology about abusers, and a common thing with these guys is the idea of, oh, if I can't have you, then no one will. And that has led to a lot of real life attempted murders,
Real
stuff
murders.
like that.
Real murders.
But it's just,
I used to work with a domestic violence operation. Like people would be killed by their husbands and boyfriends. Like every year.
that is like
Somebody in one of our programs would be
as like
murdered.
the most extreme narcissistic toxic male. And so that really solidified it for me, that scene.
You're not allowed to exist without me.
Yeah.
You exist only to serve me, and without me, you might as well be dead.
Yeah. Really fucked.
Yeah, hot. I don't know. Some people.
So yeah, the ending still has me perplexed. That one's a tough one for me.
Of what, the demon mark showing up at the door and the child drowning himself.
Yeah, but also just like the use of the bombs going off. What is he trying to imply with that sort of imagery and sound? I
mean,
really
part of this is a metaphor for the division of Germany. This guy's Ukrainian director, but they've had their own problems even before the current crisis, with national identity and such. I don't know the entire history of the country. So there's that. I mean, also it could be as simple as an emotional effect of like a psychological war has been rampaging and it has led this child to drown himself, whether literally or metaphorically.
yeah.
To escape it. I could see it. I could see a child maybe killing themselves in a bad situation, but I don't think children that young typically commit suicide. At
Yeah.
least I don't hear about it. Typically you need to get those hormones going. Yeah, you need to reach adolescence. And he's outside. He's almost like Bob. He's on the outside, just being evil and creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where does it go from there? Is that the end of the story? Is that just the specter of the memory of his father, and the kid had a panic attack and hid and held his breath and potentially held it too long and accidentally drowned himself? That could be something. The child realizing that his parents are gone. Maybe he secretly got the news of his parents are gone, and that's how his child brain interpreted it. I don't know. What was the director's childhood like? That's something I want to know.
It's a cool ending regardless.
It is. And also like a movie, especially from the 80s, ballsy enough to end in child suicide is truly horrific, and much more horrifying than any sort of Universal monster-esque. Not like that, not like the 40s and stuff. I'm just saying that like a stereotypical monster movie where it's like,
yeah, no, there's an interesting, you got to be real careful with child death in movies. That affects people more than most things.
And we don't know. Maybe he's just holding his breath a long time.
I know. It's just this is a really ballsy fucking movie for 1981. I think it's
very
awesome. But it's like
definitely not an American production.
Yeah, I guess the girl in Frankenstein from the 30s, that's very tastefully done. Sumner,
when he throws the girl in Young Frankenstein down the well.
Sumner, he can't deal with like kid death in movies really, and it's interesting because he had to like turn off Hereditary and come back to it like a days or a week later, and that's how bad it affected him.
Dude, that's so funny because my reaction to that scene in Hereditary, I was like in the theater practically fist pumping, and I'm like, this movie is the shit. I'm so bought in right now.
My hands were like gripping the fucking seat, dude.
Oh, dude. Back when I didn't know who Ari Aster was and I was having my mind blown.
I felt so sick.
How I was like, this is my favorite horror movie ever. And then Midsommar came out. And I was like, no, this is my favorite horror movie ever.
Yeah, Justin, our friend Justin, he does not do horror movies, but I made him go see this one, Hereditary, which was the most jump from The Grudge scaring the shit out of him when he was 14, which is like PG-13 horror, to Hereditary. Is really funny because his knuckles were completely white.
Yeah. Horror really, I mean, this is true of every genre, but a lot of lesser horror movies, there's no central metaphor. Like the horror doesn't represent anything in the human psyche. It's an external threat. The horror has to be an internal threat, which is why
no. Dude, Friday the 13th, the final chapter is fucking baller.
Okay,
No, but for real, I understand what you're saying. The problem is that the 2000s, we got such an influx of straight to DVD and straight to VHS crap. Just nonstop schlock, no substance, slasher crap, and gore.
But not even fun schlock. Not even like Evil Dead.
Just bad. Just shock and gore, because Saw was really popular at the time. Stuff like that. When the first Saw has plenty of, substance, and I haven't seen the rest, but I just remember
have to get Sam back on. He really likes Saw 10. That's good for him. I'm not watching 9 other fucking Saw movies. Sorry.
I'm happy for Saw fans that this one.
I'm glad they got something.
The 10th installment is one of the best of them. It's insane.
Yeah, name one other franchise where that's true.
I can't. But yeah, exactly. What I'm saying is, like,
Creed 3.
I would always be at the video store and see all these terrible, horrible covers for all these crappy horror movies. And that's what I thought horror was for a long time as a kid.
Me too. And it's one reason I'm not as familiar with the genre. And then I think my parents were a bit strict over what I could watch, so I didn't watch a bunch of horror.
It wasn't,
I was just watching other things. And it's one of those things. This is it really appealed to, how do I say this politely?
The lowest common denominator.
Working class white teenagers from middle America, from Arkansas.
Now, yeah.
Like, nobody in your family
has
health insurance.
It doesn't help that I wasn't allowed to watch shit. I was very sheltered. If I could have handled something like Halloween, I think, if I was like 14 or 15.
Yeah, I think I could have.
But I was just not there. My mom, for some reason, let me watch Sweeney Todd, which is a very gothic and very violent musical. But anyway, so it wasn't until I was 18 and went and saw shit in theaters, and I went and saw The Conjuring, which was a fucking banger, and then You're Next and stuff like that. It Follows. And that really ignited my passion for horror. And I want to point out to the viewers at home that a term got tossed around this time called elevated horror. That needs to be abolished, because there's no such thing. It's just a good movie that
it's a good movie.
Yeah.
But that really shows you how little people think of the genre.
Yeah.
And the genre did that for itself. And one reason, it's cheap. You just need a lot of corn syrup and food coloring.
Yeah.
And like, your acting doesn't have to be that good. You can scream. You can have Chester Bennington in a Saw movie. You
can make it campy. You know what I mean? And people,
right. And if you have bad acting, that's part of the aesthetic.
Have you seen Peter Jackson's film Brain Dead, or Dead Alive, as it's
called? I know. I've seen scenes from it. I haven't sat down and watched it.
Yeah, that movie.
But that's more fun. That's just ridiculous.
I know. That's just I haven't watched it in like 4 or 5 years. I'd like to rewatch it. And dude, yeah, you gotta watch The Exorcist. Maybe we can sit around and watch The Exorcist sometime this month.
We can. No, there's a lot of horror. That's the thing, though. Even with, obviously that, but even with some horror movies that get recommended to me, like I remember Raw, and this is just an example of a movie. It's about some cannibalism or something, Swedish or something. I don't know. And like, I saw that movie and I was just kind of like, by the end of it. Sometimes horror movies get recommended and I'm like that. And because I do think it is weird, like, and it's interesting how passionate horror movie fans are, because the fact that Shudder, there's an entire successful streaming service in this age of oversaturation of streaming just for horror fans, because people are so into horror, and it's like Christmas for them this month. I think is really interesting.
For sure.
There's enough horror fans that a movie like Skinamarink can get an almost wide release, and we saw it.
That's so crazy.
Is that movie 30 minutes too long? Yeah, but I'm glad I saw it.
Hell yeah, dude. I can't believe it.
what the fuck is this?
I saw someone talking about how they watched it on acid in the theater. I'm like, dude, you're fucking crazy, dude.
With the patterns of the film grain?
That would melt your fucking brain. Some people are crazy, dude. There are some movies that Redditors consider to be elevated horror, like that just did not hit for me at all, and I don't consider to be good. Like
And I'll ask you, there's been horror movies where I've asked you about, and you're like overrated. I'm like, eh.
Like Good Night Mommy from 2014.
Yeah, you talk that one specifically. I remember asking you, and you were just like, eh. Saint Maud. Did we even do a cast on that?
We talked about it briefly on, I think, one of the Halloween casts.
Style over substance. Like generous, yeah.
So yeah, that term's bullshit. I'm trying to think of there was another one. Oh, The Babadook. That movie's not in the slightest scary at all.
Yeah, really? Because I've heard that recommended, but then I heard you know, just because you and I have similar movie tastes, and
I don't have to be, it's hard to scare me as like a, unless
I'm not scared in horror movie, and that's one reason some people like to be scared.
I like to be thrilled.
I like to be thrilled. I like to be pulled in.
But there's a few that genuinely have me gripping my chair, like freaked out and horrified, and like Hereditary.
I've never had that movie experience in a movie since
The Conjuring, when I saw that in theaters, when she's turned upside down and blood shooting out of the fucking thing around her face, that fucked with me. And then Hereditary, obviously, and then number one, Firewalk with Me, because it changes the context of Twin Peaks so hard, and it becomes a very dark and abusive tale about her father sexually assaulting her, and it just becomes the psychological terror that just builds up so hard, and by the end, when they're out in the woods and Leland is completely unhinged, and I care about Laura as a character so much because of her impact on the entire town and the entire 2 seasons of television around her death, that it just emotionally impacts me to where I feel sick when she does get killed. So David Lynch did a good job with that. And when I say psychological horror, people may not think of Twin Peaks, but Firewalk with Me, to me, it gets terrifying.
Yeah, that's a horror. I could see that.
It is, to me.
As a horror movie.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if there's some underlying physiological mechanism for horror movies that makes some people more into the genre than others. I mean, part of it's just a fascination with the macabre, which I do have in many ways. And I really like horror literature. Like right now I'm reading Thomas Ligotti, who's a contemporary cosmic horror author, and he's one of the masters of the form and an excellent writer, like on a prose level too.
Okay.
But I almost like that because my brain knows how to fill in the gaps and make me uneasy. But I almost wonder if like jump scares, sometimes a movie will get me, sometimes it won't even be a horror movie. But some people, I wonder if their like neurology is more able to be triggered like that because you get that rush of endorphins, know. And I, just as an anxious dude who buries all of his emotions, I just carry tension with me the whole time, and it's difficult to release.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't have those peaks and valleys watching a horror movie. It's just a constant unease and escalation. Yeah. That's just me. But I still like horror. I mean, a good movie is a good movie, period.
Yeah, exactly. Like The Exorcist. Like this movie, which doesn't fucking gradually take you down the rabbit hole. It says, fuck it, we're going bonkers. And
no, it starts bonkers, and then about 2/5 of the way through gets insane, like extra bonkers. Like it starts bonkers, and then it's like when you have somebody with schizophrenia or like and like they're already like uneasy, and then they smoke really high THC weed in Amsterdam, and it's not good. You got anything else to say about this or the state of horror in 2023?
No, well, we'll have plenty more to say, I think, as the month goes on about horror. We'll probably do one of our annual Halloween casts where we just bullshit around and talk about shit. Next week, Tetsuo the Iron Man, which isn't a conventional horror, but it's definitely a weirdo, creepy, weird movie. Definitely fits this time of year, I think. So look forward to that, everybody. Other than that, I think it's time
Like
to
and subscribe.
thank
Follow
everyone
me
for
at Scott
watching.
K Comedy. I'll be at the Memphis Current on the 22nd. Come check me out.
Yeah, like and subscribe so we can get sponsors and I don't have to do bullshit fucking manual labor or anything like that. So I can just make cool videos for you guys. Anyway, yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Tune in next week for Tetsuo. Go watch our fucking Good Time cast. I'm gonna say this for the next few casts because YouTube screwed over our algorithm on that one and it pissed me off. And I really like that episode. Go support that one. Say fuck you, YouTube. We're gonna watch this and find it anyway, even though it's not gonna show up in subscriber feeds and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. See ya.